Welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast, everybody. I am your host, who does the most, Ethan Smith. And as my wonderful channel coordinator said to me this morning, I am free from the chains of oppression. I am going to be having a lot more free time, as I mentioned to you guys last week, which means Pittsburgh Pirates baseball will be coming to your feeds on YouTube, Spotify, Odyssey, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast Monday through Friday, as well as the person to my right, if I could ever actually point correctly. I will be doing a lot more work over there at Bucks in the Basement with Gary as well. And on today's episode, with the month of April behind us, shockingly already, felt like that month was really short. We're going to review the month, things we liked, things we didn't like, as well as giving our predictions for the week ahead with yet another Monday off here for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Today's episode, of course, is brought to you by BetOnline.net. We'll talk about them more later, but with that said, let's get into today's episode.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Alrighty, everybody. As always, after the intro starts, you know it's time to get real about the Pittsburgh Pirates. And of course, we are joined, as we usually are every Monday, by Gary Morgan, who has turned into a jet setter of sorts. He is currently on the West Coast right now, having a fun time out there with nice weather. Hopefully, he brings that nice weather back to Pittsburgh for a lot of you guys who listen to this podcast. But, Gary, how have you been? How's everything going for you?
Oh, pretty good. A little tired, jet lagged, and the weather's not as great as you'd think. It's pretty much what we left back in Pittsburgh, just maybe a little drier.
Oh, well, I mean, hey, it's probably not as bad as I would expect, though. Probably what, like the high 60s, probably low 70s.
Yeah, high 60s, low 70s. So
There you go. It's not too bad. And it seems like we're the Pirates right now. If the Milwaukee Brewers and St. Louis Cardinals just didn't exist, that seems like the win total that they would probably have throughout the rest of this year. As they end the month of April with a 9-13 record, as most of us would say, the record for the Pirates right now is still pretty much meaningless, I would say. I don't think anybody's trying to fool themselves and say that this team is going to be a contender, albeit they are third place in the NL Central at the end of the month, which isn't saying much when the Cincinnati Reds are in your division. But the month of April was very interesting. You see that the team did very well against everybody that wasn't named Milwaukee or St. Louis. They win a game against San Diego, but had a chance to really win 2 or 3 out of that series. But what did you like from the month of April? We're not going to get into the didn't like stuff until the next segment, but what was there to like over the course of the entire month?
I mean, over the course of the entire month, and I think the theme all season has been the bullpen has really kind of either carried the day or been the reason that things fell apart. So I think that has to be the focus. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with it. I like I like the turnaround from Will Crow. I like the way Dylan Peters looks like he is taken to his role, no matter where they flip him to. Um, David Bednar looks like David Bednar. You know, Anthony Banda was pretty good there before he got nicked up. So there's a lot to like about that bullpen. I still think they're short a piece or two, but it's coming along. Certainly better than it was last year.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's one thing I've heard a lot of Pirates fans say already in comparison to last year's team is this team is watchable. Like they actually are competing with teams. Like even when they lose, they're kind of not getting blown out like they were last year when they were playing the Cincinnati Reds. And it was just like, okay, we're playing the Reds. How many runs are we giving up today? Oddly enough, entering the month of May, which we already have, we are already 0-1. Well, the Pirates are already 0-1. Sorry, I don't play for the team. I just cover it. Um, the ERA is 28th in all of baseball, which people are like, wait, so your bullpen's doing good, but your ERA is 28th. And it's like, yeah, well, we'll talk about starting pitching later, but this bullpen has been very good. You're not lying at all. And one of the tweets that I had yesterday before the game, which I need to get this off my chest at this point, one of the bright spots was Michael Chavis this whole month. Michael Chavis had a phenomenal month. He was kind of resurgent in this month. And if he can pull this off for the whole year, I mean, it'll be something nice, but if he's not on a scheduled rest day, why is he not the starting first baseman right now?
All I can think is that he's not prototypical first baseman. I mean, he's a little short. I also wouldn't say he's so good over there that you just have to ignore everything else and make sure he's the starter. He's not. He's not that kind of clean defender over there. But for this team, with what they have, yes, he should be nailed on starting every day. And I think we all know there's 4 million reasons why that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and those 4 million reasons had a tough month, as well as some other positives I would take from this month is Key Brian Hayes played very well, albeit no home runs on the month, but whatever. Defensively, he's looked really good, hitting the baseball very well. Diego Castillo came onto the scene and has done fairly well for himself as well. And I do know they do. What day do they have to make the decisions for options? I forget what day that is.
They should have made them overnight, so we should know them now as soon as reporters wake up, I imagine.
Okay, gotcha. So I've heard that probably more than likely the Pirates will be departing with Jack Sawinski and probably one of the pitchers, I would assume, or even maybe Castillo. There's been a lot to talk about already, and we're only 22 games in, or 23, yeah, 22 games into the season. But there's been a lot of positives. I really think that there's a lot of positives that this team can grow on. And even so, I would even go out on a limb here and say, yeah, he doesn't have a win. I don't even think the Pirates have a win from a starter yet this year, but Mitch Keller has looked phenomenal. I mean, he's like, well,
Yeah,
I wouldn't say phenomenal, but he's looked better. Like he's actually locating his stuff better. He's just not getting the run support that you would like to see him get.
he's looked a lot better this year, and wins and losses, I think, to starters in Major League Baseball. I mean, they're even talking about taking the stat away, Ethan.
Hmm.
So that should tell you where Major League Baseball falls on how important wins and losses are to pitchers anymore. Your wins leader every year is going to be somebody like Suter up in Milwaukee, or Dylan Peters in Pittsburgh, or Will Crow. It's not going to be a starter in a lot of places, and that stinks for somebody that grew up with it. But don't get hung up on that. If you actually watch what Mitch Keller's done, he looks different.
Oh yeah,
And he's hitting his spots now. The velocity is not dipping game to game, inning to inning. He doesn't seem afraid to challenge anybody. Give him time, and I think we're going to be pretty happy. And for those that don't believe that, well, you just watched Joe Musgrove, who's just about to turn 30, and he's finally put it all together now. So why do you want to give up on a guy that's 4 years younger than that? I mean, it takes a
yeah,
while to develop pitching.
4 years younger than that, and also as we mentioned before the season started, with the shortened COVID year and injuries, has not really even pitched more than just a little bit over a full year's worth of pitching. Like
Right.
if you actually like attribute the stats to what he would probably pitch this year if he pitches the entire year healthy. And I agree 100%. He's locating his fastball very well with that increased velocity. I think yesterday, I believe it was the end of the fifth inning. I think it was like a 7 pitch inning that he had, and his average velocity that inning was 98.6. I said, I will take that all day of the week. And we talked about his importance of if he can really show up and be that marquee starter in this lineup, it's going to move the Pirates forward a lot faster than people think. It's just who joins him now. We'll
Right.
get into that. I'm assuming probably later into the year. I saw that you were talking about with Jim about how the lineup will be drastically different and how the offense is brutal right now. But we'll get into that here in just a moment. And if you want to bet on the Pittsburgh Pirates day in and day out, by the way, there's plenty of crap to like bet on right now. The NHL playoffs start tomorrow. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. Baseball is on. You can even bet on the USFL if you want to for how funny that league is. But I see Gary shaking his head, and I don't blame him. But betonline.net is your number one source for all of your betting stats and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball and NHL playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. And Bet Online, of course, is where the game starts. So we talked about some things that we like. Now, this is probably where a lot of the more truthful stuff will come out. Is the things that we didn't like. Now, of course, as we mentioned, there have been positives. There have been a plethora of positives that we were able to talk about that we didn't even touch on fully. Negatives, though, Gary, I mean, that list can go on and on and on, and we could talk for 2 hours about the negatives of the things we saw in the month of April. So pick anything and we'll talk about it.
The biggest overarching negative to me is this is still a team that is carrying 5 to 6 guys that aren't Major League Baseball players, and they don't have to.
Nope.
Like, for instance, we just talked about not knowing who they're going to cut today, right? If you cut Jack Sawinski and keep Cole Tucker, I've got some questions. If you, you know what I mean? And I'm not even sitting here telling you that Jack Sawinski's ready, but at least don't know that he's not a major leaguer. I do know that about Cole Tucker. I do think I know that about Josh Van Meter. You know, that's the type of thing I'd like to see them kind of work through this season, and I believe they will. Like I told you early on, I think I told everybody early on, 10 to 14 players aren't going to be on this team next year. So obviously that's going to require some people being basically booted or traded or DFA'd or whatever. Um, I would say the starting rotation has probably been the biggest overt disappointment, though. There's some talent there, and we're not seeing a lot of it come through. Bryce Wilson's underwhelmed. Thompson's really underwhelmed. To the point where I'm not sure how much longer they can keep him in the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Brubaker has that one pitch or one inning every game where it's just bad. Quintana and Keller have been good, but that's it.
And Quintana is basically going to be a trade piece in July.
If you're lucky. If you're
If
lucky,
you're
he
lucky,
is,
yeah. And who knows with the way teams are treating pitching right now, pitchers might be a hot commodity again at the deadline. I mean, because
Sure.
people act like the Pirates are the only team that is treating their starters the way they are. I watched a game. I forget what game it was the other day, but it was I who was it? It was an AL game. I forget who was playing though. But both starters only went 4 innings. I said, okay, so the Pirates aren't the only team doing this. And there's reasons behind it. The game has turned so analytical that a lot of times I agree with Derek Shelton most of the time when he's like, okay, you have to prove to me you can go through the order 3 times. There's nothing wrong with that. So far, I'll be honest, Mitch Keller and Quintana are the only two that have proved to me that they could probably go through an order 3 times and maybe only give up 2 or 3 runs. And that was the other thing that bugged me a lot so far through this month is it seemed like the offense would finally wake up, but then the starting pitching wouldn't back it up. Or the starting pitching would finally have a good game, and then the offense wouldn't back it up. And again,
I mean, that's the
nobody
hallmark of bad teams,
yeah,
Ethan.
and
That's
that's
what
yeah,
happens.
and that's what I was going to get to is me and Gary and no real Pirates fan is going to try to fool you and tell you that this team is a contender. They're not. 9-13 is better than what I expected though out of the first month. I'll be honest. When I tweeted yesterday about the fact that 13 of their next 16 games are against the Cincinnati Reds and the Chicago Cubs, I mean that in a realistic way to say the team should have a winning record over their next 16 games. The Cincinnati Reds are awful. I mean, awful. If you want to get a kick out of this, Pirates fans, go look up a video yesterday where on 3 straight plays against the Colorado Rockies, there was 3 pop-ups in the infield in foul play, and they didn't catch any of them and allowed a base runner. The Pirates should win all of those series.
We should also remember that too for another reason, because when that whole Will Craig thing happened last year for the Pirates, and it became like the running gag of MLB for a while, and it was on ESPN, and people were tweeting it. Everyone kept assuming that wouldn't be the case if it wasn't just the Pirates.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing that it's happening to the Reds too, right?
Yeah.
Just keep that in the back of your mind, because like it really is a league that targets the lowest team on the totem pole. They're not necessarily picking us because we're the Pirates.
No.
We just have a head start.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, too, is I had people say, well, they're looking at it that way, too, because the Pirates are on their schedule. There's a difference between the 2021 Pirates and this team. I will go ahead and say that now. The reason I told everybody when I was doing my season prediction episode that I really firmly believe this team could win 70 games is because of the way that they play. Albeit they're not great, but from the public eye, when I've asked other people about the Pirates, they say, yeah, you guys might be bad, but you at least play hard. Like you might be throwing guys out there that don't need to be out there, but you're at least showing life in some of these games. Like yesterday against the Padres. I mean, they were in that game for all intents and purposes the whole game. Last year, yeah, they did it early in the year, but then they played San Diego later in the year and got clobbered. It just happens. But the thing is, take advantage of playing teams that you are on that level with, or even at this point with the Reds, better than. There's not going to be many opportunities where the Pirates can say, we are the better team on paper when we walk into this game. Against Cincinnati, they can do that right now. They can really do that.
They can do that after they beat them a couple times.
After they beat them, yes, of course.
I think that Cincinnati stinks, but I also think that their roster is a little better than they're playing. So I expect them to push back a little bit, and as they get a little more healthy, and as some of those young pitchers start to actually throw the baseball a little bit more, I expect them to be a little better. Like I expect Hunter Green to come back and be good. I expect Lodolo to come back and be good. You know, like so I think they'll grow as the season goes on. I just think that there's a cap, and I also think they're not done moving people.
Yeah.
I'd also say the Reds and the Cubs are the reason that I picked the Pirates to win 70 games this year, because I think that's where a lot of them are going to come from.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to back away from it now. The Reds aren't good, and the Cubs aren't good. Yeah, they should clean up in this next month.
Yeah, they should clean up in the first half. We'll talk about that as we preview the week, and we'll preview the month ahead as well when we come back, because the scary Witch of the West is on the schedule this month, and I don't even want to mention it. I don't even know if I want to watch those games, but I will anyway. But while I watch those games to cure the pain a little bit and have some energy, I'll eat Built Bar. Built Bars, of course, are the best tasting protein bars on the planet, and summer is right around the corner. And with summer, you're going to need some food on the go, like Gary does. He's on the go right now. Maybe he needs a little snack while he's dabbling over there in California. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations or business vacations, if you want to even consider it a vacation. Throw them in your bags, in your kids' backpacks. Make sure that everyone has a bar so you're fueled for your summer adventures. What's the best part about Built Bars? They're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bar, you can do both. And it's easy. All you have to do is go to built.com and order now. Of course, all Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means that with Built Bar, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. That's not enough flavor for you with all the flavors that you get, then you might want to try the Mix Box. The Mix Box comes with 12 flavors now of bars and puffs. Built Bars make sure there is something for everyone. And most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar and net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. So make sure you go to built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off of your order when you use the promo code LOCKED ON in all caps for the best protein bars on the planet. So, previewing the week ahead first, and then we'll talk a little bit about the month of May. The Pirates, of course, go on a nice little 6-game road trip. Originally, I believe it was supposed to be a 5, but because of how the season was postponed, they have a doubleheader on Saturday. So they will head to Detroit. Of course, Detroit over the offseason made some interesting moves with Javi Baez, Eduardo Rodriguez, and bringing up, I believe, Spencer Torkelson on full
Hmm.
time now. So, fun little team down there, but another team that at the beginning of the year, excuse me, is 7-14. So, over the course of this week, the Pirates have a better record than both teams they will play. What does that mean? Whatever. But again, I keep mentioning the records, but they don't mean that much. But it's just a short little 2-game set in Detroit, kind of like we saw last week with who did they play 2 times last week? Did we even play somebody two? No, I'm just tripping. We played Milwaukee 3 times last week, I think. Um, anyways, I'm losing track of the schedule already. 162 games is a lot. But then, as mentioned, they will play the Reds for 4 games in a nice little weekend set Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So they have an off day today and an off day Thursday. Very interesting with those days. What are we expecting from this week facing the Tigers and the Reds?
I expect the Tigers to figure it out at some point. So I'm not going to get super down on them yet. They're relying on a lot of young pitching, which, if you're a Pirates fan, you kind of could be looking into your future a little bit here. You know, a couple signings to augment what you've built. And sometimes that doesn't look the way you want it to look right away. You know, you rely on those young guys to like step up and do what they've been doing or what you think they could do, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it takes a year or two to come together. I think that's kind of where Detroit is. They're going to be a crapshoot all year. The Reds, I mean, the way they look right now, Pirates should clean up. They really should. And that's probably the best way to know if this team's grown. If they just continue to pound the teams they should pound. They should beat the Cubs. They should beat the Reds. They should, you know, give a good contest to a lot of teams like Detroit that are in that lower threshold. And that's what I'm hoping for this week.
Oh yeah. So in the Detroit series, it'll be Bryce Wilson and Michael Pineda. So that not a younger guy in the first game there for Detroit, but then Tarek Skubal and Jose Quintana will match up, which is going to be a pretty interesting one based on ERAs, considering they're both below a 4. Then we move into the Red Series. Zach Thompson is slated on Friday against Undecided. Nothing for Friday or Saturday yet. So we'll see what they decide to do there in terms of that. We know we make predictions, Gary, and the last time we had you on, my prediction actually was spot on thanks to Dave White shouting me out on that on a comment. I know I was kind of off and on about that record that week. Last week, I don't remember even what I predicted, but I know it was wrong because they only got one win. I think they were going to. I think I said 2-4, so they only went 1-5, I believe, over the week. So definitely didn't get that one. But moving on, what do we think the prediction for the record is this week?
So what did we decide? They have 2 against Detroit and 4 against Cincy, right?
Yes.
So let's say they should win 4 or 5 of those.
I would say
Now, will they? I don't know. But that's what I'm going to say. They should win 4 or 5 of those.
I'll go with 4 just because for some reason I feel like I think they'll split against the Tigers and then win 3 of 4 against Cincinnati. I think just because it's in Cincinnati. I think there's going to be that one game where Cincinnati's like, all right, it's the Pittsburgh Pirates. This is our rival. We're going to push back. Like, I think that's
Yeah.
what'll happen. So I would say a split against Detroit. I think they win the Quintana start. I think Wilson's going to struggle a little bit against that lineup for some reason. And then Quintana will probably kind of shut the door on that and have a good Wednesday matinee. So 4-2, I think, is where me and Gary are. And then in the middle of all this, after this week, we move into next week, and they play the Reds and the Cubs after this. But sprinkled in there, we get to see the Los Angeles Dodgers come to town.
Yeah.
Are we just going to mention that in terms of the month of May, considering they play this team twice this month, along with the Rockies, who have actually surprisingly looked pretty good out of the gate, the Padres, and the Cardinals? So I think, again, where me and Gary keep saying the emphasis on getting these wins against teams that you know you can beat, like the Cubs and the Reds, is imperative for this team because you play the Dodgers 5 times, the Padres 3 times, the Rockies 3 times, and the Cardinals 3 times. That's that's some tough stuff to deal with in the month of May. What are we looking forward to for this entire month, though? What can be improved upon? And also, I have to address the elephant in the room because that date is coming up pretty soon. Do we see an O'Neill Cruz debut this month?
Well, let's start there. Um, I don't know. I would normally have told you yes, um, but I don't think so. I think he's given them the excuse to go ahead and leave him down there long enough to shoot for Super 2. And
Mm-hmm.
um, it's really on him. I think he could have performed a lot better. And maybe then there's some pressure on them to bring him up. But really, I can't even really argue much that he deserves to come up at this point. I mean, he needs to do some things, I think. So a lot of the things I was concerned about, I'm still seeing. I know the Pirates have just said the same thing. Ben Cherington just got done saying, gave him a list of things to work on. He's still actively working through those. And defense, just not a joke. They don't know what they're going to do with them. I so it's hard to pull somebody up that you're gonna have to just stick in the DH spot when, oh, by the way, you're arguably your most consistent hitter this year has been your current DH. So, and I'm not saying O'Neill Cruz is not better than Vogelbach, but I am saying you're not going to take Vogelbach's bat out of the lineup for a
No.
kid that's not hitting
Mm-hmm.
to come up and learn how to hit in major leagues. Just isn't going to happen. So, I don't know. I don't think it goes past June though, because I don't think they want to play this game again going into next year. So
Yeah,
they'll get his clock started this year at some point.
yeah, and also we've already seen Roansy Contreras be up here for a short stint. I think we'll expect him back pretty soon as well. Um, I think a lot of that talk will extend into next month, probably June, like you said, because I think that's when trades will probably start lurking on the horizon. And then, of course, into July near the deadline, that's when we'll get to see a lot of this movement happen. And the team that we are watching right now, as you've mentioned before, is not the team that we're going to see come June, July, and August. It's just not, and that's the beauty of it. But
Yep.
at least saying that this time, there's actually real talent that can come up and help. I've even seen people hype up Mason Martin a little bit. I still think he's a little far away. I don't think not far away, but I still think he's not there yet in terms of where he needs to potentially be the first baseman. Would I hate seeing him come up? No, but I also don't want to watch him be Joey Gallo and either hit a home run or strike out every at bat in the majors yet.
I mean, to
He's
be fair, so far he's not Joey Gallo. He's
yeah,
got his K rate in the 30%. That's what he did last year at the beginning of the year too. It's really about seeing if he can maintain it. I love Mason Martin. That power is raw and real. I really do want to see it in the major leagues, and I think we will. But he's not on the 40 man, and people need to just kind of chill a little bit because even though Yoshi has stunk, you still have him and Chavis to get through. Yeah, and technically Vogelbach
Hmm.
before you get to like Mason Martin time. And the only way that's going to happen is if they're ready to cut ties with somebody that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
And that's not Chavis. He's played well enough that they're not going to cut ties with him. Again, I just said they're not going to take Vogelbach's bat out of the lineup. And Yoshi has, again, 4 million reasons why he's going to get a little bit of a shake here. You're going to at least wait until that salary's prorated at this point.
Hmm.
So pump your brakes, let Mason do his thing, and we'll see what happens. But next year, he's an option.
Patience is key, and patience is key throughout, I would say, a lot of the month of May. We're moving into the big part of the MLB season, usually. Things are in full swing now. And with that said, of course, thank you for making me and Gary your first listen of the day every single Monday here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Of course, Gary will be doing some fun stuff over there at Bucks in the Basement. I'm not sure with you being out there. Are you doing five thoughts at five today still?
Yep, it's already written and in the can, brother.
There you go. See, look, he might be jet setting, but he's still getting you guys the lovely work that you love to see. Of course, over here, with my time now expanded, like rosters expanded in April, you are definitely getting 5 episodes this week and moving forward. Time is a lot easier for me now. I have a lot more free time to actually dedicate to this wonderful podcast that you all listen to every single day. And with that said, Detroit and Cincinnati this week. We will be covering the Detroit series in depth tomorrow, talking about our opponent. Know your opponent is something I'm going to start probably doing a lot more here so you guys actually know who we're playing, what's going on with the teams that we're watching the Pirates play against. But with that said, guys, thank you so much. Tune in to all of the other podcasts on the Locked On MLB Network. They're all doing phenomenal. Make sure you go check out Bucks in the Basement with Gary, myself, and Craig, and everybody else on that site that does amazing work as well. And I will see you guys on the flip side.